All right, we'll get started in just a minute. We have a nice group joining us today, this morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are from. And it's great to see everyone from around the world here. Daryl, it's lovely to see you as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I see some people from across the pond, from North America, some people in Europe, and that's fantastic. And of course, some people in the United States.
All right. We've got a nice group going. So why don't we get started? We are at the top of the hour. So let me start here. Welcome everyone to IIL's webinar today on driving transformation success. We're very happy to see all of you, and we thank you for joining us today. I'm delighted to welcome Daryl Popowich, who's going to be leading today's session, and I'm going to hand it over to Daryl shortly. And I want to share a few notes about IIL. If this is your first time joining us, we are a global leader in professional learning and certification. And we work with you as individuals or as leaders in your organization to deliver practical, up-to-date training, whether it's through our live virtual courses, self-paced programs, or in-person training, or coaching or consulting. We are here to help you build skills. We've been around for about 35 years. We have teams in 13 countries. I'm joined here by my colleague Pavel, who's in Finland as well. He's here to help us with the platform. And we are, of course, joined by our network of trainers, coaches, and consultants around the world. We are here in your time zone, and we're ready to support you. All right, so let's get started. And I want to introduce and bring in our presenter for today, Daryl Popowich. Daryl is the founder and president of Transformation Craft, a coaching and consulting practice that helps leaders and project professionals implement people-centered change. And he's joining us from the beautiful city of Calgary today. Daryl has held senior leadership roles, including Chief Information Officer at H&R Block in Canada, as well as Managing Director of OBS Global, a global consulting firm. Daryl has held senior leadership roles at the Business Relationship Management Institute, or BRMI, where he has held numerous roles, including Chief Visionary Officer and Chief Operating Officer. Daryl is a recognized speaker on organizational transformation, and he's here to help us, give us insight to turn misalignment into momentum. So thank you so much, Daryl, for joining us today, and I will hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, May. Really excited to be here this morning. Thanks to everyone who's joined us, and IIL, of course, for introducing and being available for project professionals and leaders alike to be able to learn how to make the impact that they want inside their organization. I am super excited about sharing this passion, this career-long learning that I've gone through of understanding how transformation can be implemented, executed from our leadership influence. So we've got a lot to get through today. And what does that look like? We'll start off, why do transformations fail? Just touch on a little bit to set the groundwork. Then we'll dive into all things culture. We'll look at the core culture compass, how we align the organization, way things are done to the strategy of the organization. And then we'll start dissecting things like culture clash. We'll look at aligning behavior inside the organization to that strategic culture. And then we'll dive into what you as project managers, as leaders, as PMO leaders can do to change just executing into true leadership. And then we'll close off at the end, because culture isn't the only thing that we need to take a look at when we are driving the organization, the things we're responsible for, to that successful outcome and making the impact that we want. So before we get going, we really should just step back and understand what a transformation project really is. And so here, while we're talking through this, just pop into the chat. What are some examples of transformation projects that you have on your desk, in front of you in your computer right now, to share with the group of what you think a transformation project really is? And so here's this really great way to simplify it down. Change. which many projects and many initiatives are about, is you do things differently. Whereas transformation is becoming differently. And you may have heard this in your career. Transformation happens when the way things are done around here change. You've probably run into that person who's been at the organization for 20, 25 years, and they look at you funny when you're saying, oh, we want to do things differently here. And well, that's not how things are done. That memory probably pops up for a number of you. And so let's take a look at the definition. So what an organization thinks, how they decide, and how they behave, that's fundamentally what we're looking at when we're talking about transformation, not changing the process view of some procedures, changing the platform, how you enter things, changing the screen. It's when we're changing how people think about that new implementation. So some wonderful examples here. When COVID came in, and all of a sudden the world completely, utterly changed, and we had to roll out a way to meet and a way to work differently. And there was two different approaches organizations took. One was a change, is we're going to take the meetings and make them virtually. And then others brought in Teams, Zoom, and collaboration. We're going to replace some of the hallway conversations with things like Slack, things like Teams meeting. And we changed the way we thought about doing work, connecting with people before, changed the way we actually structured some of those virtual meetings. Is the first 5 minutes, we just had some social time. And then we closed off with a little bit of, hey, let's have some coffee virtually. So that's, just a quick example during COVID of how some organizations just created meeting platforms, a different way to meet, and others thought differently about how we move forward. Implementing an ERP system, of course, is another definition of a change, because you are fundamentally changing how not just people enter information and manage information and execute processes. We need to think differently about why it's important to put all this information in accurately, because there are upstream and downstream steps and handoffs to other people inside the organization that they need. Yes, implementing a CRM, some of these things about coming in, building a new SharePoint site, sure, that hosts our client documents. Business engineering, these are all examples of big T transformation. Another great one, providing real-time data to frontline workers. So, you're in a store and you walk in and you're out there shopping, and they don't have the item that you're looking for in that store. Well, that sales clerk is able to go and take a look at other locations in the city and say, well, over at this location, we actually have a couple on the shelf. Did you want me to reserve it for you? Or we can bring it here and you can pick it up either later today or tomorrow, whenever we do these types of things. And so that thinking is completely different than the very transactional mode that sales clerks used to have. And then certainly, if you didn't think you were in a transformation with some of your projects that are on your plate, we're in the world of AI. And AI is transforming the organization on a massive, massive scale. And in the leaders that I'm talking to on a regular basis, I'm starting to hear this message. This is the year that incorporating AI is now going to be an expectation of the job. In fact, you've probably heard of some organizations that are already holding people accountable to not bringing AI in and laying people off, or having performance conversations. And I really just believe that 2027 will be the year that you must know how to use AI in your daily job, just like you needed to know how to use Word or Excel or whatever other tools. And so it's just picking up the way we think about work from where we were 2 years ago, completely changing. So we're all in a transformation. What are some of the other things that we have in here? Yeah, bringing in integrating systems with new apps. For sure. So thank you so much for chiming in here on the chat. You know, we want this to be a little bit interactive. As I go through the rest of this conversation today, if you have any questions, pop them in. As I'm walking through the material, if that question really is pertinent, it's going to add, I'll answer it right here, right in the middle of the presentation. And if not, we'll capture it at the end. So what one word, now that we've talked about transformation, what one word best describes your last transformation experience? And what's that one that pops to mind? Foundational, transformative might pop into your mind. But if you are in that space of frustrating, missed expectations, delayed, you're in a boat with a bunch of people. Complicated, growth, challenging, chaotic. Keep them coming. Hurt. Oh, that's a painful one right there. Fail, incomplete, challenging, incomplete, right? This is the sentiment just from some of the people in the chat today. And so we want to understand, let's step into why transformations fail. Innovative sustainability. Transformations, the failure reality is most of them actually feel like some of these bad statements. 70% of transformations fail. Let's look at some statistics. Way back in 1995, the Standish Group did a research project, and they identified that 16.2% of projects were successful. And projects are the foundation, the lifeblood of transformation. McKinsey, Gartner, BCG, they all have their own view on why 70% of transformation programs fail. And if it's a large program or company-wide, those numbers get into the 80s, into the 90%. And McKinsey and Oxford teamed up, and here's a really alarming one. 17% of IT transformation threatens the very existence of the company, can bring the company down. So you're in a digital transformation, and these types of initiatives really can cause detriment and damage to the organization. And PMI says $1 million is wasted every 20 seconds on transformations that are stalled. It's rarely strategy, it's rarely technology, and it's rarely methodology. It almost always starts with culture. And that's what we want to look at right now. And what leaders struggle with in culture, they often lack an insight to what culture and strategy, the relationship is there. And many people, when you hear about culture, you think about toxicity, you think about leaders arguing or debating or demanding things. Culture, organizational culture, is something a little bit different, right? If you have an acceptance for toxic leadership, which is what I'm going to call that type of behavior, that's different than the toxicity coming from a leader or a set of leaders that is poor behavior. Organizational culture is different. We want to understand that insight. And then there are skills to effectively manage teams within that cultural lens. And then what tools do leaders really have to assess, diagnose, and change their thinking and influence the thinking around them aligned to culture? So what we need is a framework and understanding that creates a new awareness for what that alignment of culture to strategy looks like, and some methodologies to take that insight, that new directional awareness, and start applying it into your daily activities, and equip with tools that you can actually work with on a meeting to meeting, day to day, week to week basis. And we're going to expose you to the awareness methodologies and tools here today. First up, we'll introduce the Core Culture Compass. and what that means. So many of you were at the beginning of the year in the second month, and you're now incorporating your execution strategies, your execution deliverables, action plans to the strategy that set the upcoming year. If you're in the organization where that strategy definition happened in Q3 or Q4 of last year, now is the time that if your fiscal year is the end of December, you're reconfirming that strategy definition based on the results and what the real targets are. And here is the truth. Peter Drucker says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. To properly get those execution action plans accomplished, we need to understand if we've aligned the cultural behavior of the organization so that it's easier, so that everyone is making decisions of the way that we do things and want to do things. So execution actually is impactful. So with strategy at the center, and we know that it drives it, let's talk about the 4 essential strategies that exist out there. Operational excellence is one. Market leadership is another. Disruptive innovation is a third, and the last one is customer-centric strategy. And so really ultimately, you can take that strategy you have and that you've been working on this year, that you've worked on in the past, and plot them into one of these 4 directions. Where are we trying to accomplish? Now, each of these strategic outcomes is your North Star. They all have a corresponding cultural DNA inside the organization that matches up. And in that, we have our core: command, optimization, risk-taking, and engagement. And culture is that core component that determines whether or not achieving that strategic outcome is easy, or it's painful, or hurt, or lack of an organizational change management. Some of those areas and words that you came up in here, that's when we have a misalignment. And what misalignment is we take a look on that inner ring of the attributes that exist inside of an organization, things like in command and operational excellence. We value discipline, standards, accountability, consistency. If you're in a risk-taking, bold vision, exploration, innovation. In engagement, if you're focused on the customer, we want collaboration, empathy, connection, belonging, emotional intelligence. And so these attributes really strengthen and resonate along achievement of that strategic outcome. And when we start having attributes crisscross amongst them, that's where things get difficult. And we start seeing some of that, those statements we have in the group that have come out. And maybe you have those PTSD moments where, man, that was difficult. Why was that project, or why was that time in the life cycle of the organization so difficult? And why did so many of these initiatives stall and delay? When we look at culture as that core, we now start to get a sense. And so here's the thing, is we now, with this new awareness, we need to start aligning our own internal understanding of what our natural culture alignment is. Because we grew up in organizations and we tried things that worked. Many of us on this call grew up in project management and are still in project management, or were leaders of projects moving forward. And so command operational excellence is a core alignment, a core way of thinking and doing that just naturally resonates with most that we found. What are the other ones inside your organization that we need to take a look at? Each of these strategies defined assessing out what the attributes that make the most sense to us, and then we'll talk about culture clash next. But before we get there, let's ask the question of the group. In this previous slide, what core quadrant do you feel you most naturally align in? All right. Are you command, where discipline, standards, accountability? Are you that typical project manager? Or do you come from an optimization where results focus, continuous improvement, productivity, performance? Those are the metrics that seem to resonate. Did you grow up in a startup type of mentality or that kind of engagement? Bold vision, we're going to bet on the moonshot. And so let's open up a survey here. And we'll actually get a sense from everybody here. So survey will pop up. Select which one of these you are: command, optimization, risk-taking, and engagement. And we'll get a feedback here of a graph taking a look. So you have a survey up. Please go and select one of these ones. Just taking a look at some of the responses here. I resonate in all depending on the stage of the project. Absolutely. And what's beautiful about a statement like that is you understand there are different cultural types. All right, we got about a third have submitted. So let's give it another few seconds for people to go and update, and then we'll take a look at those results.
And I see people typing in the chat their responses. So feel free to tap on complete the poll on the screen so we can calculate the response. Yeah.
And I just wanted to take a little bit longer on that one who resonates with all. Project managers are typically exposed to multiple styles of leadership. And we will really touch on, you're going to have exposure to stakeholders and other leaders who have a different natural style. And one of the superpowers of leaders and project managers especially is being able to read the room and converse in their style, and then connect them into the objectives of that project or the objectives of the organization. All right, so let's take a look at what we have inside the room. Fantastic. So we have the majority, optimization, and then we have engagement as the next set, and command and risk taking. So this is interesting, a little bit surprising around, just checking the chat. Someone doesn't see the output. Can everyone see the output there of which category we have? So let me walk through. Command, 13%, optimization, 42%, risk-taking, 6%, and engagement, 37%. So what this tells us is that everyone has a natural affinity to a particular style. And that natural affinity is how they ingest and how they see, and then what words they use when they try to drive impact and outcome inside the organization. And when we take a look at that kind of impact, we start understanding and can get a view. There is a thing called clash when the way you believe, what you believe, and how you are declaring what the direction is matches with others in the room. You have that feeling that we're all on board. Some of you have probably been on teams before where it's just, this is the best team ever. I don't know if I'm ever going to feel like this again. I had one of those opportunities early in my career, and we all sat around the room going, man, it sucks to have this so early in the career because we know probably never going to have this synergy again. Now, fortunately, I found a number of other teams to create that amazing outcome. But on conversely, when you have that steering committee or you have these different styles and they're really entrenching them, you have something that's we call culture clash. And so what does culture clash mean? There's essentially three different styles if you break it down of what of culture clash. The first one is the individual to the organization, where your natural style actually is misaligned to the style of the organization. Right? And we talk about before we get hired or when a new leader comes in and all of a sudden the culture of the organization has changed, you're talking to your friends or your partner and you're like, oh, I'm not sure how this is going to go. And that's you figuring out your alignment to the organizational culture. The next one, leader versus leader, right? And this is right now where you can get a sense, and you're probably recalling some conversations and debates and maybe even arguments in a room and after those meetings where leaders are just not lined up with each other of what is most important. And they're coming in with their natural culture of how things should get done. And they don't match up. And we'll talk a little bit about recognizing that shortly. And then the last one, and this is the scary one, is when the organization has actually set up some of their strategy in opposition to each other. And how, and we'll actually dive into that in a little bit, of how you can recognize when some of the strategic direction, in an effort to kind of keep all of them going, makes every direction right, which means if you're all things to all people, you're never going to get anywhere because you're going to be stuck right there in the center of strategy versus really trying to drive forward to that strategic outcome. So first up, let's look at that individual versus the organization. So I asked everyone here, what is their natural style? And now you need to know what the organizational culture is, what they're looking for. And when you have a mismatch, when we have, our second highest was engagement, great. If the organization is driving and asking to get to customer centricity and inclusion, then you're in a natural alignment and things feel easier. The information you put out there is aligned. If you come from a different one like command, this gap right here, this is where clash occurs. This is where what you use and say to drive results doesn't necessarily land with leadership and with organization and the results and the impact. And this is where transformations land in the fail ditch. They fall off the road. So what do some of the characteristics look? Now's the time to really take a step further than these upper statements. What does operational excellence as a strategy and command look like? Well, core belief. They believe in order creates clarity. When we have things defined, that allows everyone to drive forward. The values of command align to operational excellence. Discipline, control, and consistency. Under pressure, and here's where you really get to see how an organization aligns its culture, hopefully to the strategy, is when things don't go right, what is the response? Command culture gets rigid and decisions come from top down. And this is different than those moments when you're in a crisis and you're maybe in a breach event or you have a degraded service and you have to just resolve and execute. Those are brief moments in time. What is rewarded, though, after those brief moments, and here's what really understanding culture aligned to strategy is, what do we go back to after an emergency? Do we go back to the way the culture really wants to align up to that strategy, or do we stay in that lane for too long? And then this last element to take a look at on this page is this strength and risk combo. Because the flip side, your greatest strength can be your greatest weakness. So the strength risk combo is flawless execution for everybody. We write the processes explicitly so everyone can duplicate exactly how we want to do things. But that can land to some inflexibility. That's not how we engage with partners or customers or supply chain. This is the way we do things, because if we do it that way and we do it well, we know what the outcome is. So quickly, let's now take a look at some of the other quadrants. Core belief of optimization, driving to market leadership. Mastery creates consistency, values accuracy, quality standards. Under pressure, overanalyzes, slows down. And that strength risk pair, quality is most important. paralysis on the other side. If we don't have that quality measure, we can't release it. If we don't have that quality standard, we have to go back to square one and get that quality up and running. This quadrant, if you think about market leadership, this is Amazon to a T. When Amazon was rolling out across the world, when they chose to go into a region, it was to own the consumer shopping experience, not customer centricity. Yes, they wanted to touch base and understand what customer sentiment was, but they were doing it to understand what products they needed to bring from their supply chain and get it into that localized warehouse so they could deliver it within a day or two. That was their connection to customer, because if they got those products closer to the people buying and delivered the next day, same day, next day, or within 2 days, it was to drive their significant market share in that world. Every decision lines up here within this culture quadrant. So next up, if you're in risk taking, core belief, bold action creates opportunity. And this is me to a T. What is the vision, and what are we going to do to change dramatically how IT is delivered when I was a CIO, how we connect to our clients? What's the big, bold statement, and how we're going to change the way things are done? We value speed, innovation, experimentation. You already heard me resonate. I get this. This is where I live. Under pressure, chaotic. When things aren't going right, we start grasping at what's the right big best moonshot to be able to get out of there, and translates into impulsive decisions. And then that strength risk pair. Innovation is the strength, but on the flip side, all that innovation can create chaos inside the environment. And so for those people that have had leaders who culturally align with this, when that pressure hits, it feels like we're just running around trying things, versus what we really need if you're an optimization or your engagement. We got to sit down as a team and figure things out together. Or optimization, let's go look at the numbers. They'll tell us what the right answer is. And so these moments under pressure is where you really, really find the example of the culture of individuals in the organization. And last up here, this culture quadrant. Core belief, people create outcomes. This culture values inclusion, collaboration, and trust. And under pressure, over collaboration stalls in decisions, and the strength risk pair, alignment and indecision. And so now that we've taken a look at these things, it's time to ask the question, where is your observation of leader to leader culture clash? When you see what they value, what they believe, and especially when they're under pressure, are they behaving differently, and they have different views on what the right step forward is? That's leader to leader culture clash, and it creates all sorts of problems inside of an organization. So next up, let's walk through a little bit next level down of what understanding that culture clash can look and feel like. So for you, you want to determine yourself, or if you're looking at your partner organizations that you're in a relationship with, what probably is their culture? Well, if the leadership history, if that CEO comes from operations or finance, they're probably in command. If that CEO and that inner circle of leadership came from sales and engineering, they're probably thinking, behaving, and aligning to market leadership optimization. If they came from research and development, risk-taking. And if they came from marketing or customer service, engagement, customer centricity. And that should give you a sense of what really is that cultural alignment and that strategic objective. Now, let's take a look. Every organization has customers. I'm sure some of you have been thinking, hey, but everyone has to value customers. Well, yes, absolutely. And whether it's customers, citizens, students, trainees, whatever that customer is in this state, these cultures think about them differently, right? In command operational excellence, we want our customers to expect the same thing every time. You go to McDonald's anywhere, you're expecting the same taste of the Big Mac made the same way, and you don't get that variation, right? In market leadership optimization, we're better than the competition. In disruptive innovation, in risk taking, build it and they will come, right? Did we ever really think that we needed an iPod or an iPhone? We didn't. Did we ever think we needed a personal computer? Consumers didn't, but those risk-taking individuals, leaders of Microsoft and Steve Jobs at Apple, yeah, if we build it, they will come. And then customer centricity, customer is king. Right here, we can start to see, yeah, everyone has customers, but it should be resonating right now. There's a different message about what matters. Next up, we'll just look at a couple of these because we want to get through all the content here. Everyone has their product or service. In command, we're engineered for consistency versus in market leadership, optimization, quality, you can trust. Again, different perspectives about what is most important. They're going to make different decisions in those different cultural alignments. And how these organizations deal with employees, operational excellence, disciplined, steady, dependable. You do what you say, you show up always, and I can rely, or we can rely on you to deliver the same way every time, versus employees in the customer-centric engagement, champions of the customer. You can hear people and organizations say, right, great, but what is the customer going to think about this? Let's go ask them before we make this final decision. Again, different perspectives. And making sure we're aligned is key. And lastly, finance, because we all have finance in there. And so operational excellence, your CFO probably says, control the cost, we control the system, and control the outcome. Whereas in risk-taking disruptive innovation, we're going to bet on the moonshot. We're going to figure out, of all the ideas, we're going to select some few that are moonshots, because we hit the moonshot, our financial problems disappear. Right now, we have that resonating experience going on. Yeah, that makes sense. Some of those conversations in my past absolutely make sense. And so let's ask the question, another poll. We'll open it up. Where do you feel culture clash the most? Me versus the organization, me versus my direct leader, or I see leader to leader and it's causing chaos out there. So let's open this poll up. Same thing that we did before. Please go ahead and update. And as the submissions come in, I'm going to read some of the questions that have come in. Just a few of you have entered. Let's just take a look at what the group has articulated. Let's get up. Yeah, here we go. Some more. Me versus organization. Do I feel like, wow, I thought I aligned, but maybe I don't, based on what the organization is saying. Me versus my direct leader. I now see that there is that clash that I need to think about every day. And then leader to leader, your stakeholders, your steering committee, your delivery, those leaders clash. And maybe it's not just a personality type. Maybe it's this view a little bit differently about how they're trying to get decisions made inside the organization. And so here, it's easy to identify in this group, leader versus leader. Two-thirds of you say, yeah, I see culture clash out there in leader versus leader, and the impact that it has certainly inside the organization. Me versus the direct leader. You know that you need to try to align. You have one-on-one conversations, and you figure out how that alignment works. And then me versus the organization, and a fifth of you are like, yeah, you know what, I see this difference. And those that are, all of these clashes inside the organization create churn, and energy. Now, let's quickly walk through what happens if your organization actually gets it wrong themselves. What this diagnostic is taking a look at the strategic statements of the organization. And so you go grab all these. Step one, collect them, put them on the page. All right, your strategy, vision, mission, values, and KPIs. Maybe you have this all printed out and you can just go grab the one. Then you take this new understanding of the core culture statements and plot them in, and you highlight and identify what they are. The top one here, your strategy North Star, deliver consistent, efficient operations at scale. This is command. This is operational excellence. So you highlight it as red. Vision, in this right here, as in this example, become the most trusted partner in the customer daily lives. Well, that clearly is engagement, customer centricity. And this is what we see organizations do so wrong, is they actually make conflicting statements without clarification. Mission here, this particular mission, reliable services, disciplined execution, standardized processes, that's command. And then values. This is where organizations, again, we want to have all of the different right types of values. Precision, optimization, harmony, engagement, boldness, risk-taking, innovation. I mean, if we did a poll, we'd probably find out many of you all have innovation and AI as part of your values or goals and objectives. And then KPIs at the bottom, in this instance, on-time delivery, process cycle efficiency, are command, and customer satisfaction is engagement. So you now see culture confusion, which will create clash inside the organization. Because one leader will say, well, we have to make sure that customers trust us. And another one says, well, we need reliable service through disciplined execution. And so now they're both right. And how do you determine what the right statement and the right behavior is? Well, as leaders, when we get this new awareness, we can start completing statements. Step 3 is to become the most trusted partner in our customers' daily lives by standardizing services and reducing misses. Of course, customers want standard services and they want reduction in misses. And when we add that element, we flip this statement from engagement back to command. Precision through adherence to the playbook. In this project, we value harmony by ensuring clear roles are defined. Everyone understand their role definition. We want to be bold through decisive ownership of action. Who owns the big next step to make sure that we move the needle forward before next week? And in innovation, through disciplined continuous process improvement. We have a way of doing continuous improvement. Let's follow it. And the last one, customer satisfaction. We satisfy our customers through that reliable, repeatable service. So here, you as a leader can take this disparate culture confusion, because you're probably not going up to the CEO or the C-suite or the board and changing the one page, but you can change your language to align to that outcome that you're looking for. Quickly, we'll take a look at some best practices, right? So Microsoft, when Nadella came in, he went with an engagement culture style. Culture first, strategy second. How Microsoft aligned, he shifted to a growth mindset from know-it-all to learn-it-all, eliminated stack ranking, modeled empathetic leadership inside the organization, inclusion, emotional intelligence, and really strengthened cross-functional relationships. By really fixating every cultural behavior inside the organization to customer centricity. They did things like, if you use Linux, we're going to support you, which was different than what Microsoft was before. Microsoft went from a 300 million capitalization to 4 trillion by really holding true to that culture, aligned to the strategic direction. Second example, Apple under Jobs, risk-taking. One culture, one system, one lens. We're going to figure out what we build and we're going to line up to it. Unified the entire country under one P&L. We all win together, not just the one best moonshot. A moonshot outside in a different area wins the whole company. 1,000 no's to every yes. One of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs: it's more important to know what not to do than to know what to do. And so we have 6.84 billion smartphones on the planet. Whoops. Who would have thought that we would have almost a smartphone for every person on the planet? And these smartphones can fly us to the moon and back. It changed the way the organization works, the way the world works, the way customers thought about doing things. So now we need to take a look at how we continuing down change your behavior and language. What tools can we use? So again, this strategy culture pair, recognizing the things you do on a daily, weekly basis. What do you celebrate? What do you lead by? What do you prioritize? The decision making, handling conflict. How do you even close a meeting? Make the plan versus teamwork. I don't know how many times I've been in a room and we go and create this plan, we do some good brainstorming, we deselect things, and we have this list, and some leader closes it with really, really good. I'm so happy that we have a plan that can execute on. They're speaking straight from command. Now, if you are in a customer-centric organization, that leader has just made a culture class statement. And here's what you can do as that influential leader. You can close the loop and go, yes, we have a plan. And now I'd like us to pause and ask ourselves, do we have the right team to execute on that plan? Can we move forward effectively? Is there anyone missing for that plan to be successful when we look at it a week, a month from now? Leading by, in command and control, authority. Who is responsible to make the decision, and the decisions flow down to those people inside the organization, versus charisma, and that's me, leading by charisma. If I create this view that we have a better vision and a path to get there, people will want to follow, and they'll take up the mantle and head in that direction on their own. How prioritization works, right? In that risk taking, you're going to hear it. Oh, what's the next big idea? We got to do some ideation and brainstorming, versus in that engagement, how are the people feeling? You can see these things manifest in rooms and in meetings on a day-by-day basis. Decision making, what does the data say? That's how we'll make decisions, versus, okay, we got to select our big bet to be able to be successful. Handling conflict, conversely, if we take a look at these two. Risk taking, we fight for ideas, whereas in engagement, we talk it through. We make sure everyone's idea has been put on the table. Closing a meeting, who owns next step in command and control, versus let's follow the results. We'll make sure we have the results and we'll circle back together. And so right here, you can probably see for yourself where you are confronted with these culture class statements all along. And that's where in real time, you as a leader can start aligning your statements towards what makes sense for the organizational culture, not you, but where do we want to be as an organization? Because when we do, we have results like Microsoft under Nadella. We have results like Apple under Jobs. Things get easier. So now let's really talk about what you as project leaders, as leaders responsible for projects, what your superpower can look like. What are the 4 steps that you start today or tomorrow? First thing, get clear in your organization, what it's truly driving towards. What gets rewarded, what gets repeated, what gets measured to get that culture North Star. This is what they're heading towards, and these are the types of behaviors that the organization understands and wants repeated over and over again. Spot the culture contradictions that slow your project down. Your stakeholders, your influencers inside your project, who you're delivering to, what they say. Just start observing them, because next up, you then create behavioral alignment cheat sheets. As you observe them, you write them down, you put them into those sheets that you saw, those quadrants, so that you can say, oh, that leader or that person keeps saying this thing. What do I do about it? You don't have to change culture every time the first time. Being aware of that, you can start flipping things around. And then lastly, you bake culture alignment into your project rituals. Can you figure out how today I have meetings upcoming, this type of culture clash probably will happen. How do I start meetings? How do I close them? How do I prioritize so I'm aligned to what the organization is looking for? And then lastly here, you can see this is a layer on top or an addition right beside PMBOK in the guide, right? This, when I was setting up and running PMOs and I was responsible for projects, this type of awareness intuitively understood in my career of driving transformational change. And now there's a recipe and a framework to be able to apply it. And so that's that last piece. To start closing this off, we've just touched on culture, and culture is the most important. If you have this misalignment, then how you build relationships, you're building it on a weak foundation. Because as soon as pressure hits, those relationships are going to go, those individuals are going to head in their own cultural direction, and that's where trust will be broken. How you decide is not how I decide, and therefore can't trust you to decide the right way. Well, if we know that we need to both align to the organization, we're building trust together in relationships. Acceptance is that view of what, how do we get the employees and the users to buy into properly the new way of doing things? Well, when we start talking about this is the North Star that we're heading toward on a consistent basis, it starts feeling more natural over and over again. And acceptance happens when we create that pull versus continually pushing change on people. And in focus, this is all about knowing what things to really work on and deselecting things that we shouldn't. Well, if you don't understand culture properly, you're going to deselect projects that don't have the right ROI when you really should say, well, that's aligned, so we got to keep it. Now we just have to get the right structure around the project. And projects that seem to have the right ROI, but they're headed in the wrong direction, we got to stop those. And in trajectory, this is metrics from top of the organization to the front line. Being able to determine if those KPIs that make decisions line up are to Craft, do a diagnostic assessment with us, or sign up and get into one-on-one coaching to figure out to answer the questions you have on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis to be able to really drive things forward. So with that now, let's take a look at some questions. I think we have, I might have gone about 2-3 minutes, a little bit long in my oratory. So
all
what
good,
do we have
Daryl.
here,
We've got quite a few questions that have come in. Let's go through them. While you read the questions, Daryl, I do want to address a couple of quick things. So some people are asking for copies of the slides, and I'm afraid that since this is proprietary content, we do not offer the slides, but feel free to watch the recording, of course, and take notes. There are three good resources that are in the related learning tab that you should see in the top of your screen. You should see a PDF for the craft framework. That's a 2-pager. Daryl created that, and it's a really nice, concise summary of what is the craft framework. So that one, and there's 2 blog articles that are sort of informing articles that Daryl also wrote that kind of gives the background on the transformation challenges and how to overcome them from a cultural perspective. So I hope that answers the question regarding getting copies of the or content from this webinar. But thank you very much for the question. All right.
Yeah, fantastic. And please reach out, right? Like we we know that these concepts, based on everyone we've talked to, resonate. So we can absolutely connect up. So I'm going to take a look at some questions here from Angela. Oh, you mentioned that business transformation is highly interpersonal. Is there any intersection with Tuckman's 5 stages of forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning? Absolutely. I've used this often. I absolutely recommend project managers, when they have a team, to map this out. But just imagine now the forming, storming, norming stages when we start talking about, do we really know what the organization is looking for, and the cultural behaviors? And let's make sure that we understand which behaviors are in different quadrants. The speed to which you get to performing and adjourning is much faster and more significant, and the bonds there are even more advantageous. Great question. Let's take a look here. Oh, I love this one. Hear it often. We're hearing more and more about AI and how it's changing the way we work. So we're hearing globally that everyone needs to figure out how to learn AI in their daily job. And so what we're going to have is AI adding and augmenting our human insight and inspiration and getting to results and deliverables faster. Well, if we have cultural confusion and misdirection and everyone not knowing which way to go, what do we think the answer is going to be if we have AI helping us go every direction even faster? Organizations are going to end up in spiral and clash even more often, and it's going to get frenetic for ourselves. The organizations who know how to point culture towards strategic outcome before applying AI, they're the ones who are really going to get the success of AI helping leaders and individual employees drive faster. The ones that don't understand this concept, they're going to be looking at it a year from now, 6 months from now, and they're going to be like, why can't we get AI to drive the success we're seeing in other organizations? I'll be doing a whole blog series myself on it, and we at Transformation Craft, we're diving in and creating some assistance around moving forward with this. May, do we have time for one more question?
Absolutely, Daryl.
Perfect. Okay, let's see.
I see a good one here.
Which one?
What do I do if my boss is the culture problem?
Oh, I hear this all the time. It's usually in one-on-one conversations after presenting. Someone comes up and is like, I got to talk to you about my boss. And so first and foremost, you need to do that. Is your leader aligned to the organizational culture? And that requires you to understand really what the organizational strategic direction is and the culture they're looking for. Because you need to assess whether or not that leader is misaligned or whether they're actually lined up with the culture of the organization, and you are just seeing their manifestation, their decisions being imposed on you, and you're just in a clash with the organization. But if your boss is in clash to the organization, you are in that really sticky situation where you don't know what to say and you don't know how to behave. Well, hopefully we've opened up and created some relief. Now you know some words you can use to realign the things you would say that value to the organization. You can take your boss's cultural statements and realign it. And I will bet you, if you start doing that, some of those what you would call toxic cultural behaviors will start going away. Because it's a frustration, it's under pressure. Why can't I get people to understand what we're trying to accomplish? Great question there.
Thank you so much, Daryl, for your insights, and thank you all for your fantastic questions and your engagement. I think we can all take away something from here. We all recognize the problem, and I think, Daryl, you've articulated so well in very concise words some of the cultural the issues that we all face. And that's really well outlined in your craft framework. So thank you very much for that. And please, everyone, reach out to Darryl directly or to IAL.com if you want to learn more about Transformation Craft and how we could support you in your transformation projects. All right, before we wrap up, we're a little bit right at the hour. A quick announcements from us. We are running 2 live virtual courses on PGMP Prep and PFMP Prep in February, 2 weeks from now. You can find out more about these prep courses, the times and the dates on our website, IIL.com. It should be under live virtual courses. We look forward to seeing you if these courses meet your goals or at a future course. I also want to share that IIL has launched a brand new webcast series in the first quarter in January. We ran our first session, and we're coming up to the second session focusing on leadership skills, leading with influence in February 25th, and emotional intelligence unleashed on March 25th. There is a small fee for joining these, but please feel free to check out the agenda, and we'd love to see you there. All right, and just in closing, I want to thank you all again for joining us today. Thank you for your questions, for your engagement. You've been a really fantastic audience, and thank you, Darryl, for leading us through your insights. You can get all of the recording, the PDF, and as well as the links very conveniently from your learner dashboard on IIL.com. You should also see the PDU and the attendance badge right away. The replay will be available in 24 hours, and there will be a follow-up email to keep you focused on that. And as always, we want to thank you for your attendance today, and we welcome your feedback in the evaluation form. We are continually enhancing our own services, and so your comments, your feedback will really help us stay on the mark. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your help. We appreciate your being here today, and thank you, Darryl, for taking us through a really expansive topic. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again soon. Take care.